So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Ms. Acuff?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Ms. Kovic?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yep.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Great. And a motion regarding the approval of the minutes of February 28th.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Ms. Acuff?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman? Ms. Kovic?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Great. Next, we move on to an evaluation by council of the 2024 street maintenance program. Mr. Sheehy.
Do I get the engineer's pay too?
He doesn't know to get your hair. Mr. Sheehy will make the presentation that he made to the infrastructure committee. Could we hit some of the lights? It'll make it easier to see it on the screen. Thank you very much. No, actually, yeah, this is the front lights. yes.
What's the other side?
That's it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
There.
I like it.
You don't want the front because of the glare.
Right, right. It's the front lights that we want off. Thank you. Thank you, Ian.
The little map of Pepper Pike. We'll go through this pretty quickly, but the streets that we really have major work on are Gatesville Boulevard, a section of Kerrsdale, Forest and Edgewood Drives, Woodley, North Deer Creek, Lombardy Lane, Thornapple, and Pine Tree Road. So just the ones in yellow. There's actually a little bit of work potentially going on east and west Brainerd, sort of the triangle on the south end of Brainerd, close to Woodmere. That is a timing issue with the Village of Woodmere that's driving the timeline. That may or may not occur this year, probably gonna be next year, but just so you're aware of that. This first section, we show Gates Mills Boulevard and that section of Kerrsdale Road. Gates Mills, I think, was originally paved in like 1999, so it's been 25 years.
Has it been 25?
Yeah, 25 years, so it's been a long time. So, actually, typically pavement design life is about 20-ish years, so we've gotten, well over that. But it is showing signs of wear. Not a lot of huge structural problems. Most of this is surface deterioration. It really kind of just gets beat up from weather and sun, and gradually decomposes. So it needs to be milled off and resurfaced. We're not anticipating a lot of base repair. A couple of pictures of condition. Just in a couple. Granted, we're taking pictures of some of the worst areas. Most of it's just kind of weathered and cracked. And, the service department does a really nice job of crack sealing and doing point repairs over time, but at some point it requires more work.
Well, we don't have that, you call it reflective cracking like we have on Shaker and other places? Is that because the
Yeah.
foundation here is better?
It's a really strong base material. There's a very thick layer of material that they used to use in the late 1920s that's still there. And really, as long as you can put a new surface on it every 5-ish years or so, it will last and die. And it can't
Great.
stop.
Almost like it was built to hold up railroad trains.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, this road design was, it was almost like a highway. They didn't really, that's why people tend to go a little faster than they should. It has a feel of a much larger road, and it can actually, it's designed to handle cars at a little bit higher speed, but 35 is fine. So,
Dawn,
yes.
the timing of this will occur after the main trail is built, because when you have all that heavy machinery, even though it's not gonna be on the road, I saw on our part of Gates Mills, it broke down the asphalt, so. that's
Yeah, this, it'll be a separate contract likely. Timing wise, really, no matter what we do, we're gonna be pretty restrictive on the contractor that's doing the work in the center, that they provide proper plating and that type of thing if they're doing any kind of work that they need to be out on the street, so.
After.
No, probably not after. This is probably gonna happen in mid to late summer, and the path will be under construction, but probably won't be totally complete till end of the year or early next year, in terms of landscaping and trees and stuff like that, so.
You're not worried about incremental damage from, no.
It's you get really focused on a project that's happening nearby, but they could be paving another road where 100 trucks drive down the same stretch of road, you know, to pave another street somewhere else. It's just. Kersdale Road is a little side street near there. It's actually in pretty bad shape. It's certainly certain portions of it. Again, not terrible structurally, but there are some areas where there might be a little bit of pulled up base repair, and then it's basically a resurfacing type project. Just a couple of pictures of condition. There are areas that are in pretty good shape, but these photos are some of the areas that have more wear and deterioration. Next piece, this is Forest and Edgewood, and a big U shape. Both of those are part of the sanitary sewer project. So this will occur likely after the sanitary sewer work is completely done. That work is, you know, this summer, hopefully by fall, this will be part of that work. If for some reason that gets postponed, then this piece will have to wait till next spring. But our hope is to get this done, you know, this construction season. Condition-wise, this road it's got some wear and tear. It will be cut up with some of the sewer work going on, and that's a lot of heavy truck traffic, specifically in this neighborhood. And unlike Gates Mills, which has a very strong base, this is more of a residential roadway, so it's not quite as durable. This will get beat up pretty good from the construction activity. We're planning on this, that we do what's called an in-place pavement recycle, where we take all of the pavement, grind it up, and reinstall it, and then they put a new top on top of it. That's probably the best way to handle. And we have some trench areas and some areas that are being.
How's that different from the mill and fill?
The mill and fill is basically you're going to take off, say, 3 inches of asphalt and put 3 new inches of asphalt down. Here, they'll take the top 5 or 6 inches of existing asphalt, grind it up at an emulsion, basically a binder, roll it out, let it cure for a bit, and then they'll put a couple inches of asphalt on top of that. So you're taking advantage of a lot of the existing material that's there, but you're still putting some new material on top.
And in the mill and fill, you don't take advantage of the material that was there.
No, and you can't, the different, you know, it'd be nice if you could do a really thin mill and fill, but it doesn't really work well. There are some industries out there that would try to do it, and it just doesn't wear well, it doesn't hold up that well. You have the benefit, like on Gates Mills, where it's a really good base. So if you take that off and do that, you know, put a nice surface on it, it lasts for a really long time.
Okay, and what's the name of this again, as opposed to the mill and fill?
This is an in-place pavement
In
recycling.
place.
One question, the short cul-de-sac street off of, I think it's on the Forest
Park,
side?
yeah, the little one there.
Park, what's it called, Park Lane?
Park Lane.
Park Lane, is that not part of this project? or
It is not.
Okay.
Just the way the topography is, that street probably drops 15, 20 feet for the houses that are on the cul-de-sac there. And it's actually too low to be part of the sanitary sewer project.
Okay,
And because it's a really low volume roadway, it's actually in really good shape. So
oh, okay,
we're not,
good.
we're not-
I just wanted to make sure we weren't overlooking,
right.
I know it's only a handful of houses, but.
Yes, it's been maintained really well by, you know, the service department, and it doesn't get a lot of traffic.
Okay.
So it's in pretty good shape. So not part of this one. Just another condition on part of the Forest and Edgewood. Next piece, there's 4 streets here really. Woodley, North Deer Creek, Lombardi's the little cul-de-sac off of North Deer Creek, and then Thornapple that comes off of Pine Tree. All of those are also in that 20-ish, 22-year age. A lot of edge cracking. A lot of that, unfortunately, is from delivery vehicles and even some school bus traffic and things like that, where vehicles get off the edge. Or somebody's building a new house and there's some bigger construction equipment coming in and out, and the end just really leaning on that edge of the pavement, which is where we get some problems. So not a ton of base repair, you know, a little bit, and then basically these are mill and fill resurfacing.
Don, is that an issue we're having in these neighborhoods where we're getting these tear downs? Are we getting a lot of damage on the?
It could be, it could be an issue with anything, like it could be somebody getting a driveway replaced, and just the person delivering the concrete might be very sloppy with, driving, pulling in. It does happen on occasion. I know the building department does, cite people on occasion.
That's what I was wondering, what our recourse is.
Yeah,
'cause it
They,
could
they
be
go
very
after them.
expensive.
We've had companies have to replace chunks of the road, so.
Then they actually, because citing them is just a tick.
Oh, well, no,
They
it's,
have to
yeah, we
replace.
hold them to the, yeah.
Okay.
There have been times where they've had to come in and say under our asphalt point repairs, we'll do a point repair, and then they have to pay the bill for that.
Great.
So just Woodley, here's a couple condition issues. North Deer Creek and Lombardi, again, not in terrible shape, but a lot of cracking. There has been a lot of larger homes and a lot of home remodels on some of these streets. And, over time, hundreds and hundreds of heavy trucks do take their toll on the pavement. So these need attention. They're also, about 20-ish years old. Just a couple additional, just photos of conditions, seeing what they look like. Thornapple, little cul-de-sac street, pavement's about the same age, roughly 20 years. We did a water line replacement on this, we put a water line in on that street, 20 years ago. That's when the last time we resurfaced it. So not in bad shape, but it's one of those that if you get in there and just do a no and fill, we'll keep it looking nice for another 20 years and not have to spend a lot of time practicing. The next piece is Pine Tree Road, which really runs from the circle at Lander all the way to South Woodland. It continues on, but that's under a separate potential future paving project. Pine Tree at this spot is actually State Route 87. And we've been trying to get support from ODOT to help pay for some of this. It's not bad enough for them to participate, so we continue to ask, but we're not getting any response. In the meantime, it's not in great shape. We want to get it done. So our crews do point repairs, we've done catch basin repairs, we've had obviously crack sealing on there. The street structurally, it's in good shape, it doesn't have a lot of huge base failure problems or issues like that, but it is in need of a new surface. It is also, I want to say this road I think was done in 95 or 96, so you're talking about almost a 30-year-old pavement out there.
No chance it would get on their radar from a state perspective that we should?
I would say we would need to let it go for another 5 years, and I don't think we'd want it. It would cost us more, well, besides the aggravation, it would be a constant maintenance issue for the service department in wintertime and things like that. So, we'd be at their, it wouldn't be guaranteed it would get.
Right.
Ron, is there a bike lane on that street?
There is not a bike lane. No,
No.
it's a little bit, I think, too narrow to stripe it for that. That's something that we could look at though, as we have been resurfacing other streets. If there's enough width, we can at least put an edge line down there. I think it does provide a little bit of guidance for, the walkers and joggers to kind of stay off to the one side. So that's a good point. Sorry, just a couple of more condition. I mean, again, it's not really structurally in terrible condition. That's part of the reason why ODOT's not that interested. But as that surface deteriorates, all of a sudden, it kind of goes up. We did put together a preliminary cost estimate for the streets, and that's how they.
John, in terms of the total miles or yards of street, this
Yeah.
seems a little more aggressive than prior years. Is that fair?
It's, last year was a pretty big year because we did all of Shaker, which lengthwise is a pretty good chunk. And then we also did half of South Woodland and another street. So this probably is a little bit more mileage wise than that. Some of these side streets are pretty lengthy. I think we were at about 5.5 miles, something like that.
For this project this
Yeah,
time?
for this
So you add those up, it's,
about 2.6.
and is that in terms of, these would be normally scheduled, part of the 5-year, 10-year plan, nothing unusual about what's
No.
going on here?
No.
Okay. And 2.6 from a cost standpoint would be, is that, if you were doing this 5 years ago, how much has that gone up from inflation or otherwise?
You know, the old rule of thumb was about $500,000 a mile. roughly.
Okay,
So we're probably 15, 20% higher
over that.
over 5 years. So not a giant jump
For Milledgeville?
for the mill and fill, yeah.
Okay, so it would be handy if you could put the, length down on this chart, in the future. But so the 850 is probably, you said 500,000 for a half a mile,
It's about
but 20% more?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, if we would
0.7.
have done this 5 years ago, it might have been 700.
okay, so that's about 0.7 of a mile or something like that. And Kerrsdale is.
No, it's about $500,000 per mile.
Oh, I
Gates
see.
Mills Boulevard is it's got 2 roads essentially. So,
Okay.
it's kind of-
Okay, I thought you said $500,000 per half mile, sorry. Okay,
And expenditure wise, where does this put us as compared to last year? You know, how much?
It's pretty close. Where were we, like 2-3 last year, Joe?
Probably a little less than that,
Okay.
but close.
Yeah, and these are preliminary numbers. I mean, we have to do some plan prep, and a couple of the streets require a little bit of additional attention. But I think that these numbers are on the high side in terms of estimating. I want to be
Joe.
the low end on this stuff.
the number you threw out there, is that net? Was our cost, or was that the total cost, and then we had a couple of grants in there last year? Didn't we had a grant on Shaker, I think.
A grant that came in, this year for Shaker.
Yeah.
No, that was the gross.
That was the gross.
And like going forward, just projection wise, we should think about in this program, and that's a kind of dollar range that kind of
I would
year
say
in, year
this-
out,
yeah.
2.5-ish.
I would say between 2 and 2.5 is probably the range.
Okay, so a little higher this year, but
Yeah, I mean, if we wanted to push a street, you could, but I don't know that it's necessarily going to save.
In Gates Mills Boulevard, wasn't that when there was a grant enticement with that?
We are still working on that, so this is sort of our outside cost.
Okay.
Right now, we're hoping to have some new information on where they're standing on some of that participation. And there are times when the county may support it, but it might be fiscally, might happen next year, the actual reimbursement.
Gotcha. Okay.
With the mill and fill, what happens to the milled part? Is there any way to use it for the Gates Mills Boulevard Trail, like do a recycling of it?
It's, what happens is it basically, in theory, yes, but you're not gonna have the recycling equipment here. So what ends up happening is you take all of the milled material, it goes back to an asphalt plant. They may use some of it, you might physically use some of it and grind it back up and ship it back out, but you're not gonna have, it's not gonna occur here.
We can't get credit, like,
It's in the bid price. They're already anticipating some benefit of taking that raw material, because it is good raw material for the next recycled product. You know, even when you get a new asphalt street, some portion of it is recycled asphalt material. So that's it. Not all that exciting, but that's the.
in terms of that grant, nothing different we're doing here is gonna affect that one way or the other in terms of, should we put this off, not in the budget?
Yeah, I would, the intent would be to move forward in anticipation of the grant. If something were to transpire, they say, we want to award you this grant in July.
Mm.
So please don't start on any of this
Right.
payment. We might break Gates Mills out of the project
Okay.
and
All
bid
right,
it as a
just-
separate project.
Just make sure.
Yeah, that type of thing, I think we have to have some, because we already know like the Forest and Edgewood Road is gonna be dependent on the sanitary sewer
Right.
work. So that's probably gonna be bid as a separate thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the plan prep and being bid ready, these are all the projects that we're looking at.
So we'll have that flexibility until the summer, I think, to, if the money was going to come, but we needed to defer for a few months to get the grant money, we would still have that flexibility.
Yes, we would, until we actually go out and get the bids, we can bid this, on individual streets, or we can bid it with alternates or different bid packages. So we have some flexibility on how we bid the work out.
Okay. Oh, I meant as far as the grant money coming in, I guess not decreasing our chance of getting the grant money by already kind of committing to doing it if we were
Us-
close to that
yeah.
decision-making time period.
Yeah, I think us committing to it doesn't hurt us at all.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, in some ways it helps. They know that we're serious about wanting to move the project forward.
Okay.
So, that won't prohibit them.
All right, I was just curious if us committing to it made them think, well, it's gonna get taken care of, so then.
Yeah, it's separate, it's on really a totally separate track. We've applied for this money, it's on their radar, they're evaluating this with other projects,
Even
and
better.
then they'll decide if they want to participate.
Great.
Ron, would it be beneficial to also bid the Gates Mills Trail since it's gonna be asphalt during this time, or is that just totally separate?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth about that. I've talked to some paving companies a little bit about that. It's probably it's different equipment. It's not gonna be the same size paver. So, the mobilization and things like that you're hoping to save some money on, it's probably not gonna lead to any savings there. I think it might be a slightly different contractor that might do the trail as opposed to do the paving.
Remind me, how wide is the average road?
24 is typical. Some of these roads are a little skinnier than maybe 22. Some of them are close to 30. So, Gates Mills Boulevard is 24 each way.
Anything else, council? All right, would entertain a motion to authorize the engineer to prepare his specs and plans and bid process.
So moved.
Second,
Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Zatron?
Yes.
Ms. Wellman?
yes.
Ms. Godek?
Yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
All right, that's great. It's really good that we are getting this out here in March still. And that helps the process. I think it helps the competitive bidding that we would ultimately see in it. Some years, when winter is harsh and it stretches longer, sometimes it's difficult to make the evaluation of what streets until the streets are done blowing up from a harsh winter. So we're benefiting from the mild winter, getting this thing out early. So thank you very much. Thanks, Don. Next, we come back to visit ordinance 2024-04. This is the continuing discussion regarding the Charter Review Commission. It's being entertained by council. Mr. Gentili provided, a revision earlier this week,
There's a new update
and there's a new one coming around now.
coming around now.
All right, so we should, does this reflect the red line from earlier this week, or,
No, it reflects a new red line because I had to change the
so we
date.
should look at both of them perhaps, or
Pardon?
should we look at both red lines perhaps?
No,
Okay,
no, this just has one change, so the red line is to the prior version that we discussed.
Okay.
So essentially, the change is you should have a red line and
Your
a
first,
non-red line.
they're two different things.
So the change is the increasing the budget to $10,000, the two changes. And the other change is to change the date to not later than December 18th, 2024. And the reason that will become clear when I pass out this process statement, in going through that, it just became clear that we wouldn't be able to have town hall meetings probably until October, November, so it just gave us basically the rest of the year. And I can try and go through this. As you can tell, I have a bit of a cold, so I hope my voice holds up.
The mask, Councilman Wong is thrilled.
She's got her mask on.
I'll just move over here.
This is the tail end of the cold, so I don't think I'm still contagious. So I've got us passing the ordinance next week instead of today, trying to give Scott another chance to get here. I think we shouldn't really push it any further than that. Then after that, on March 31st, we would request through email and regular mail statements of interest by members of the city who want to serve on the commission. Trying to get those back by the 22nd of April. Then we would take from the 22nd of April to the 22nd of May, about a month, to review those statements, perhaps interview folks, and then we would each rank order our preferences of the folks who express an interest, and then we would compile a ranking, an overall ranking, based on the 8 separate rankings of the 7 council members and the mayor. So then on June 12th, I have the initial commission meeting, and the committees, I'll tell you what the committees are shortly. And the committees will be formed and the committee assignments made. And then from June 13th to September 12th, about a 3-month period, the commissions and committee would have meetings 2 per month scheduled, subject to the availability of members. September 19th, committee draft recommendations submitted to the commission with copies furnished to council for review and comment. The 26th, commission meeting to discuss committee reports and council comments. October 8th, commission meeting to finalize draft recommendations to council. Draft recommendations would be reviewed by the law director. October 15th, the law director submits comments to members of the commission and council, I should say, I guess I've left that out. October 22nd, commission meeting to consider law director comments, revise the commission report if necessary. And then between November 1st and November 30th, to have town hall meetings that would be scheduled. And then I would look to have the ordinances drafted for the first council meeting in December, if there are going to be any changes recommended. Now, bottom is a little disclaimer that dates are meant to be guidelines, not to be totally fixed. And committee and commission meetings are all going to be totally open to the public, which I think goes without saying, but I just wanted it to be on here so that everybody would be aware of that. Now, the committees, and this is not cast in stone, but I've done a lot of work, about 50 hours worth of work on the charter and reviewing the charters of our neighbors. And based on the complexity and the length of the various sections or the various articles, I would have a committee that would be called the council committee, and that's only because the longest article is the council article. A mayor's committee, which is the article 4 of the mayor, is the longest and the most complex. And then the next long one is the administrative departments and commissions, which includes things like the planning and zoning, and I can't think of the other one off the top of my head. This so we can have 3 separate committees rather than subcommittees to discuss and go in depth on all of these issues. And each of these subcommittees will have about 2.5 pages, roughly 2.5 pages of charter to look at. And then finally, the last thing I have for you to look at and comment on is an application form by which we can ask our residents if they want to join this commission, a little bit about them. So we can get information to make our rank order selections in May. That's what I have.
Thanks, Tony. Put a lot of work into this.
This is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you turn that light switch on?
Oh, sure.
I appreciate it. I'm in the dark. I feel like everybody. Thank you.
I forgot to. Yeah, Tony, I'm really impressed. I like how thoughtful you've been with this.
I have input from a couple of my colleagues, so I can't take credit for all of it.
Well, it's coming together so nicely, and you know how much I love a timeline. So,
I know. I should have said this is the Emmy time.
I don't need my name on anything, but really like thoughtful process. I'm really impressed. So thank you for
Thank you.
putting this together. Whoever worked on this, thanks, Tony.
I mean, Tony, I mean, this is, you know, I have always applauded Emmy's timelines. And the application, everything, really.
And it's these auxiliary documents aren't meant to be cast in stone. I think we're gonna learn as we go.
Sure.
And that there may be some, I hope only modest adjustments to them. I think I've given enough time for things that take a long time. And I think the one thing that I'm kind of rushing on is trying to get something out to our residents so that they can apply for the committee.
Well, one thing I like is that, you know, whether we tweak anything now or down the road, it's nice to have something like this as a template. I mean, this is kind of just, to me, good process. So very much appreciated. Because I know we don't have anything quite like this in our usual repertoire, so this is really nice.
I'm curious, for the application, if it gets sent out, how will it be presented? Because I know that, the idea of a charter review commission is new to me, and I feel like I've obviously learned a lot over the past, month or so, that it's really been in the forefront. So how will it be presented to people,
Well, I think-
because they've given the mail and be like, "What the heck
Well, no,
is this?"
I would draft a cover letter
Okay,
to it,
perfect.
and I just haven't gotten to
Add it to your list, right?
A cover
Okay,
letter.
that's
And I
great.
think we'd be surprised, I mean, basically all our neighboring communities do this on a regular basis. So I think people are familiar, especially if you live, in the Orange communities. Orange did it pretty recently, Moreland Hills did it. I think Honey Valley.
Mayfield Village, I believe.
Mayfield Village did it. So, I mean, I think people do have an awareness, but you're right that getting into the nitty gritty, what happens, what does it mean, is relevant. So I love that idea of having it.
Jackie, I think the cover letter would accompany not only the application, but the other documents that we handed out, so that they
Get a
get
sense
a
of
feel,
what they're
get a
getting
feel for
into,
what they're gonna be in for if they choose to try to be on.
I think that's the bigger piece actually, because it is a commitment.
I hopefully,
Not massive, but it's
No.
it's a commitment. I mean, just like anything else.
and I would hope that the meetings could last, we could keep them to no more than 2 hours. I mean, I think you're gonna be fried. But again, I go back and forth. I've been through the charter so many times, that maybe I'm too familiar with it. But there are large sections of it that probably don't need to be touched. They just don't need to be touched. Like the preamble and those kinds of things, those really relate to when the charter was first written, and they relate to what was happening in 1966, and they don't need to be changed because they're just recitals of facts that were happening and things that had to take place right then because of the new charter. So, and there are other sections like that that probably won't need much.
Or just ones that need minor wordsmithing, so,
Right.
Where they refer to councilman versus councilperson.
Yeah.
Should be a pretty easy proofread,
And there's gonna be a few places where we wanna make sure that that we as a council and the mayor are following the dictates of the charter, and where we aren't, maybe we just change the procedure so that we do, or maybe we need to change the charter because we don't really need to do that anymore. You know, this was 57 years ago, and, you know, times have changed, and this is meant to try and create the Pepper Pike for the future as well as for now.
So my question about the three committees is, you know, obviously these three bodies work in tandem in certain ways. So how do you envision kind of the committees? Do you envision them kind of doing their work separately? I mean, I know this is partly outlined in the timeline, but like sort of communication within the process, right? So like if the council committee is saying, well, this is kind of what we think the direction council should be going in, but it's something that implicates the mayor or, you know, the departments, you know, how do you envision that of everyone working together? Am I clear? Am I not making
No,
any sense?
I think you are. My vision of it is to have these three separate committees
Mhm.
work independently and focus on the areas that they're assigned or that they choose to be in. I say assignments, but I think we're gonna ask people to choose which section that they want to be in and
Yeah.
also their distribution. But I'd like to see more of a focus
Yeah.
on that area. And it doesn't mean there can't be some cross, you know,
So like just
pollination.
as needed,
Yeah,
sort
as
of.
needed, yeah.
Gotcha.
And maybe that's something that we would add a meeting or two where we kind of all get together.
Like
But I think
Touch base sort of thing.
having the focus would allow us to get through this. And, you know, I know that some feel that this is rushed, but in other communities, they put a 5-month timeline on it. They've done it in 5 months. And this is a full 9 months really from start to finish. So I was very ambitious at the beginning when I first put this out. And I still think that might have been doable, but this is going to be a much more comfortable process, I think, if we.
I'm processing all this. I think that you obviously put a lot of work. I think everyone appreciates that, Tony. I do have some both process questions as well as some procedural, you know, establishment questions that are in my mind. And I don't expect you necessarily to be, you know, the guy, oh, this is the answer to that. I'm not trying to pose it that way. I'm posing this to all the council. Because there's so many pieces here. I'm trying to break it down. Let's start with where you and Jackie were talking first on the committees. I don't know that I'm understanding this breaking out the commission into these three separate committees, because how many people are on it?
There'll be 11,
11.
hopefully. Well,
So
up to
so
11.
what you're contemplating is that there'd be 3 or 4 people on a committee, basically.
Mhm.
So rather than have 11 thinking about the charter as a whole, we're dedicating, you know, these really important considerations to just 3 or 4 people to deal with their section. I'm trying to make sure I understand. And you're really losing the benefit and the wisdom and the input, it seems to me, of the entire group focusing on the charter. And I don't know that, I understand the efficiency of breaking it down. That I get. And there's a merit to that. But I think it could be a pretty high price because you're leaving behind the collective thought or wisdom of the whole group. And that kind of connects to my other concern. When you break them apart and, like you said, work independently, so many of these sections sort of bounce off each other, they interact. And if they're just working independently, I could see you end up with almost conflicting, this committee's gone off in this direction, this saying, oh, this is how it should be, and, you know, something somewhat contrary in another committee. And at the end, you'd have to reconcile the different thoughts of these two committees, how to address, this is what council did. is. This is what the mayor is. And I don't know how that works really, the way
Well,
it's set out.
yeah,
That concerns me a little when I hear the structure.
Hopeful that there's enough time at the end where we bring it all together and the entire commission looks at the whole thing.
Okay,
But in order to get there, I think we need to have some focus on the areas. To do very thorough work and review on those areas. I just think if we have 11 people talking about everything, it's gonna be very
well,
difficult.
as you blow the committee up bigger and bigger, that is an issue. So that's just one general area, and I don't have a resolution in my own head as to this issue. I just bring it up for everyone's thought.
Yeah.
Because it's at least a consideration. And in my mind, it could be a real issue. That coordination and that sort of limited focus of anyone and as they're focusing on their piece, not really having the sense of how the whole thing fits together and, works.
I agree.
That's one thing. As you say, the dates are guidelines. I have a process question I just want to throw out on the table to council to be thinking about. And it kind of goes back to the underlying thought of having a charter commission. I know, there are people on council who are enthusiastic, we should have a charter commission. I don't know if the community thinks it ought to have a charter commission. And, like we didn't know does the community want to have sidewalks? And we made inquiries, we educated the community and we made inquiries to the community, do you want to do this? And in my mind, this is, and I'm not trying to be over dramatic about it. I said it last night at the talk. This is, in my mind, the most potentially dramatic legislation that has occurred since 1966, because it exposes the entire structure of the way this government operates to reevaluation. And I don't know, one, do we want to do that? Two, it seems a high-risk proposition to do it, because we don't know where this rock that got kicked down the hill ends up. You don't know, because that's what the purpose of a full charter review commission is. It's saying whether it's the intention of council, we just want to do, primarily some technical corrections, things like that. It's exposing everything. It's not simply technical corrections that are, available to be considered by a charter review commission. And that's a concern to me, because I think we have a very high functioning process that has been, utilized since '66. It's been amended a couple of times. I know it was amended in '68. It was amended at least 11, 12 years ago by us. Well, not all of us, but
A couple of times.
a couple of us. And so those are more in the way of tune-ups, which I am personally much more comfortable with. I think that, and I think we should at least consider the idea of, if it be council or if, you want a commission look at technical things, I think it's more effective, probably just have council do it, to identify, okay, we want to be gender neutral. We want to be called a city instead of a village, whatever those technical things are in the charter that, can be tuned up. It's worthwhile if people feel it's worthwhile. And I think it's a safer introduction of the community into this idea of the whole charter review. I know other communities do charter reviews. It's built into their charters generally that they have to do it every 5 years or whatever. I think our predecessors quite intentionally did not do that. Just like the United States Constitution does not have a mandated constitutional convention periodically. We don't do that. We have amendments to, shape the Constitution to accomplish different things, at different points in time. I think that incremental approach, I think, is to be commended, because I think it lowers the risk profile for the city. I don't think we can, or council can embark on this full charter review. And I think the community's not caught up to you at all regarding a necessity for a charter review, because there's been no rightly defined issue that it's going to do, other than we should have a charter review to do a charter review. And I think I don't think that's the way it should be approached. It's not mandated, so why are we doing it? I think that remains an inquiry. Why is this going to occur? And I think people are asking me, I know, why is it happening? I don't really know. I don't know what the thing is beyond the technical fixes that council, envisions wanting to achieve. So I think that's something else for council to consider and have a discussion about. I can just lay it all out now, some of my concerns, I guess. The sitting with all of our historic documents, I came upon some things that were really interesting. And it was not a lot, but some documents regarding the initial charter in '66, how it happened. And here you go. What I'm handing you is simply a photocopy of one document from it. And the reason I'm handing it is because it's it shows who was on that charter commission. Now, they actually had 15 people on their charter commission, which sounds a little large to me, but 15. They selected their charter commission in 1966 by, from what I understand, actually electing those, as it's reflected here, duly elected members of the Charter Commission. And the people who were, and I think the thing that we all should come to some consensus about is that we need very sober, serious people engaged in any charter review. This is not for people with any particular political, agenda or, other, personal wants as to how they'd like, gee, I don't like her, I don't like him, I love those people. That is not what we want to see on this charter commission.
I
And when
need
you-
to say, I totally agree. That-
Yeah.
That almost goes without saying. We need serious people.
Yeah.
Who seriously want.
And I think in the
wanna do
document that
this.
Scott had sent us, it was a charter review will not fix a personality. That, that is not fixed by a charter. So I think,
Yeah.
I
in my
respect
mind-
what you're saying, but
In my mind, this is not about individuals at all.
no.
And I think even considering that would be the intent of anybody who supports this is impugning their integrity, because I think that the people that should be on this commission should be people who are of the highest integrity, and
Of course.
as are my fellow council,
And that's why I wasn't
and
finished, I'm sorry.
No, and I don't think that would be a concern. I think that coming to it clear-eyed, looking at it as a democratic process, just like our neighboring communities do, the ones that we often are compared to, would be the intent of everybody on this council, and making sure that the people who were there were doing it in a democratic, well-processed way with the highest integrity. I think that's everyone's goal. I mean, if anybody has a politicized goal, I would be shocked I would be personally shocked. I know that's not who I am. I believe that's not who any of my fellow council people are. And I don't really think that we need to suddenly bring the integrity of this council or people in this community who have asked. We have received a letter in the form of a petition asking for a charter review. And we have had I don't know, people have told me, I mean, I could say the same thing. People have said to me that you need to do X, Y, and Z, but I don't understand that statement. I don't know who said that. I do know that we got a piece of paper from a bunch of very concerned, very dedicated, high integrity people in the community who were concerned. And I don't think that doing something like this should be any presumption that there is a politicization of this charter or an angle, or that people are should be treated without respect for their intent and their integrity. That's my position. And I feel like that's part of the underlying conversation, and really, I find it disturbing and concerning. So,
Well,
Thanks, Molly.
Let- I did not impugn anyone. I didn't suggest
And
that.
I didn't think that you would. What I'd like to do is to speak to Melanie's point there. And I think that the process by which we select the members of this commission will help to ensure that we get
Right.
the kinds of integrity,
And that's
the kind of sober people that we're all hoping that we get. So we have to have some kind of a process to get from point A to point B.
And I agree.
think,
I
this one-
totally agree
this one
with Tony,
doesn't.
and that was my point. I was not impugning anyone. I wasn't suggesting anyone on this council had anything but that. I was saying it in the positive, in the affirmative, that we don't, that's not what's happening.
and that's great if we're all on the same page. I think that
Yeah.
that's really valuable.
Where I was going with this is I also wanted to point out who is on that commission, because I think that's important. The commission was headed by Ham Bigger, who used to be a councilman, I believe, Seth Taft, who was, a very substantial, and he's that sober, serious guy in this community, who we all look to. James Lewis, who was the mayor of Pepper Pike for on and off over 30 years from the beginning, from 26 through right before this happened, or soon before this happened. Bill Goris, who used to be the fire chief here, who lived in Pepper Pike. There are people, these are all those sort of serious, I think we should use these people as the examples of who the serious, sober people we want to be on this commission. The thing that I observe about them is that there are no elected officials. There's no current elected official, which I really think council needs to consider more carefully. Because just as it was, strongly urged in the National Civic League document that we talked about last time, that there should not be current elected officials. I understand the concern that, someone needs to be on this who does understand how the government works and can play to that. I think that's what this document provides a roadmap for. They look to their former elected officials to bring that sort of knowledge into the process. They brought, former, in this case, former mayor, former council people, people who are involved in government. I think that is, and what they avoid there is any suggestion by anyone when it comes time for the public to vote upon this, that there were any agendas. We want to avoid that optic, I think.
Well,
And let me just finish,
Okay, but
please.
this
Let me
is
finish. And this is why that's my concern, because there are 3 council people as a way the ordinance is already described, currently described, to be on it. Well, obviously, those 3 council people are intended, I think, to provide some guidance and all to the commission. That's why you want them there. And that is what would create in some people's mind, just like they say in that Civic League guidance booklet, an appearance of, if nothing else, of, substantial influences, I don't like the word, but too much input into the whole thing that, and so that by the time it comes back to council, it's like, well, 3 of them are already, to the objector, they would say, well, 3 of them are already on board with this. And now it's going to be up to their colleagues to say, well, no, we disregard what you want. We have our own ideas about this. I think it creates a dynamic organizationally that isn't attractive. And I just think that the guidebook that we all have read now is correct. There should not be current elected officials or public officials, on boards or whatever. They shouldn't be on this. And I feel pretty strongly about that. I just think it's a mistake to do it. And those are my, the timelines need to be, if council were to ever get to a point where it agreed that there needed to be more seasoning of the public so that they were more familiar with, and council was more familiar with their input of, does the public want a complete charter review at this point in time? As opposed to, I don't think anybody would ever object to the idea of, making these technical fixes that council has talked about before to accomplish. I think that makes total sense. We should do that. If I don't think, we should do it if you feel it's necessary. I don't think that the way the city operates is gonna rise or fall, but if, it's more appropriate to be gender neutral in this document, then absolutely, we can accomplish that. So those are just some of my thoughts, having gone through all this.
But I think
Just-
ultimately,
yeah.
this, regardless of, so the process happens. It goes to the voters. Like we said with the sidewalk initiative, it's the ultimate survey. If the community decides that these suggested changes made by the commission, then approved through the law director, through council, are completely off the wall and inappropriate, or that they disagree with it, then it will not pass. So I believe that we should go down this path and evaluate it and look at it. I think that there are stops in place, that if it's not good, then we abandon. But I think that we should be moving forward, and I support what Tony is putting forward.
I think that the, the idea of trying to find out how the community feels about it through a survey or something else, a survey or a questionnaire or something like that really is just a sampling of what we had in November when we had the election on the sidewalks. So we did all of that stuff to end up getting the whole population to weigh in. And in this process, the whole population weighs in, and we avoid all of the 3 surveys and people saying, why did you survey us so much? All of that kind of thing. We, as Emmy said, that's the ultimate survey, is when the electors say what they want to do. And I think there are enough safeguards built into this that we should go along with the process as I've outlined.
I really appreciate that, Tony. I think it's a very thorough, thoughtful process. I know it came up, you mentioned it again, Rick, when you were talking with people with other agendas, and I really want to get that out of the conversation. I really think we can get a good group of people who don't have other agendas. I don't have another agenda. I don't believe any of you have another agenda. I really want to stop saying that, because it does sound like we're attacking people. And one other point, which is a bit to the side but important to me, that I just need to say, I look at this piece of paper and the people who were on the Charter Commission, very respectful of the good work they did. But there is one thing that jumps out to me about this list of people, and I don't know if anybody else noticed it. There's not one woman on this list, There's not one.
Dorothea's on.
Dorothea.
Where? Who? Oh, okay, Dorothea. And a secretary. I'm sorry. There's one woman, okay? They threw somebody's on. They threw somebody's wife on probably. I don't know. I don't know. I hope she was treated with dignity and respect. I hope.
Something you should be aware of, the initial charter review commission is actually elected. There's a process
I
in the Ohio
understand.
Constitution.
I understand these were the people who were elected. I also understand the times have changed and maybe people weren't treated with dignity that they would be in a position to be elected or given the opportunity to be elected. I just think that this is an indication that maybe we could at least look at it, just like Orange does, just like Moreland Hills does, just like Mayfield Village did. I believe
Chagrin Falls also.
Chagrin Falls spends a lot of time on their charter, and they've done it multiple times. So it's not to critique the work of these people. It's to talk, just to say that this is from many years ago. I am far from the youngest person on this council, and I was not born when this was done. I was not born. I mean, and I know a lot of those people on the wall, and I respect them. And it's not to denigrate their work. It's to be a participant in the kind of work that happened. It's a continuation of democracy. That's what happens in all our neighboring communities. I think we're belittling the work they do when we act like it's not important. And I don't understand if there's something that somebody is afraid of, then they need to say it and say it out loud, because I don't see anything to be afraid of. This is a good example of American democracy in process. And I'm proud to be a part of it and to be with these people who I respect and actually like. And I think that we have people in our community who can do that work with great integrity. I don't understand this problem.
I'm supportive of the process in general and the commission in general. I do think that it should be made up of non-elected officials. And the way I'm thinking of it is you've got 3 layers of review, so to speak. You have the initial work of the commission.
Please have just a little.
Sorry, you have the initial work of the commission, you have council's review, and then you have the voters. And obviously the voters encompass everyone underneath, but I don't think there should be overlap in those first 2 because of the point where then you have something that comes to council that is borderline rubber stamp with 3 people. I think it leaves a lot less room for movement, fine tuning, negotiation in that middle layer of review. And, you know, none of us are experts on this. Tony maybe qualify after all this whole process, but I think that we should rely on the recommendations to a certain extent of, you know, the organization that does this as part of their mission. And, you know, a big point of that was no elected officials, especially when you have people of the community. And it's not to say that, you know, okay, well, we're confused about this, like, how does this actually work in practice? You know, they obviously can use council as a sounding board or a reference point. But when you have people in the community who have experience in government and who would hopefully be willing to potentially come on board and help with this process, who aren't current members and aren't going to be participating in that second layer, I don't think that any elected official should be on the commission at that first level.
So the one thing I would say to that, one thing is that, you know, it's kind of like we're talking about it both ways. On one hand, we're saying, well, didn't council do a good job reviewing the charter on their own, just council, without really, well, respectfully, just speak so, reviewing portions of the charter and adapting it. That was wonderful, without any community input. And then, when we want to have a significant, vast majority of people on the commission who are from the community, and the council people, fewer than had looked at it previously, it's not okay. Those 2 things don't make sense to me. Why is it okay when council is looking at portions process of the charter and changing it and adapting it for the times. And now when a few number of people, again, to me, I really don't understand. I mean, and I do believe we are cherry picking. I did read the document about charter commissions. I do believe we're cherry picking and somewhat misrepresenting the language in that document, blowing it up and inflating it. And, you know, I don't have it, I should have brought it with me and I could read it to you from that document. But I think we're kind of pulling it out of context and misrepresenting it. And maybe there's some agenda there. I'm trying to not see an agenda here, but it's very concerning to me, and it seems hypocritical to me. You know, send it to the voters, 9 months ago or whatever. Oh, it's horrible that we're having for so many surveys, and why would we do that? Then it was okay. Now, in this case, I mean, which is it? I mean, which is it? You're saying that you believe the council can assess parts of the charter on its own and then present it to the community without community input? That's the way to do it. On the other hand, you're saying, oh no, council should have no part in it? Which is it? It's hypocritical. It seems like there's more to this than's being said, and I don't understand why.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. I mean, I'm talking about community, council, voters.
I'll
Like
clarify.
commission,
I'm sorry.
council, voters. That's what I'm
I'll
talking about.
clarify, and I'll clarify, because prior to this, in other iterations of where Rick was referencing review of portions of the
Gotcha,
charter,
okay.
only council did it.
Right.
And that was great. That was the way to go, the way to do it. Except if we decide to have a commission, we don't want council on it. That doesn't make sense. That's illogical. Which is it? Either council should have never done that and that was terrible work and it shouldn't have happened, or it's okay if council sits with a huge number of people from the community as a subset to kind of be a reference point, as you mentioned. You know, what is the practical, how does it work? What do you know, not to lead it, not to direct it. And I don't think that, I know I wouldn't do that. I know, you know, my fellow council people, Tony and whoever else would sit, you know, there, would ever do that. So I don't see why it's a problem. That's what I was trying to say, that previously it had only been council reviewing elements of the charter. And we were holding that up as wonderful, as great. And that that's what we should do instead. But when council wants to do it with the community, all of a sudden it's bad. That makes no sense to me. I don't see how those two concepts can both be true.
No, I think that's really an excellent point. I hadn't thought of that. And I'm not saying that because she's the co-chair. I'm just saying that because it really is an excellent point. It's okay for council to pick and choose what parts they want to do, but we can't have a commission to do the whole thing. That, again, doesn't make sense. And the other thing I should mention, and I thank Jim for reminding me, that our neighbors have done it with council members on the commissions.
And some not though, right?
And some not.
Some do it, some, yeah.
But some of them have reviewed their charters multiple times, and they haven't changed from council members to no council members. So apparently the process can work with council members. And I think as Jim may have pointed out when we read this model document, that we don't know if that's targeted to, I mean, we're a city of 6,000. We're not a city of 600,000. So I'm not sure if that's the target audience of that document.
Let me just respond really quickly to, because there is no hypocrisy, there's no agenda. What there is in the prior iterations, just like I said tonight, if there are technical fixes, that is appropriate for council. That is not controversial. What we did in this body 11 years ago, 12 years ago, were essentially technical fixes. We realigned conflicts between the building code and the zoning code and got them into their own lanes so that council could do its job, the zoning code could do its job, planning commission could do its job. There was just, as you pointed out, Tony, sometimes it just was sloppy the way it was misaligned and things were happening as to variance requests. Was it really a zoning issue? That was a technical fix. We realigned things.
I disagree. I think that was a substantial change. It changes the way we were able to do business. It wasn't just a technical, because there may have been an element of technical in there, because there may have been some inconsistencies that frankly I didn't
Only
even
different.
see at the time, but I saw that we were limiting council's ability to make changes without going to the voters in certain instances. And that was a substantial change where it made clear something that we wanted to make
Well,
clear.
what we absolutely did to avoid it being substantial, so it wouldn't be a substantial change, was put in that governor that's, talked about. And I think it was Mr. LeMay's suggestion at the time that we needed to put a governor in so it wouldn't be a substantial change, that it remained in that alleyway of more of a technical realignment. So respectfully, I don't totally agree with the way you remember that.
I think it was I think it was more than technical.
And I would also say that yet nobody sought to the thought to change things from councilwoman. I mean, I don't hate to belabor the point, but I like the idea of having community members take a pass at it. I mean, nobody thought about that, and it wasn't with any kind of intent to not notice that. But nobody noticed it or thought it was important. And I don't, I just think that it's nice to have the community, some people in the community, high quality, intelligent, high integrity people, take a pass at some of those things. Maybe they'll pick up on something like that.
Let me comment, if I may. So Attorney and I had this discussion, I've gone back and forth a little bit about the elected officials, and I appreciate the notion that it might give the appearance, depending on how it's set up and how it works. To me, the first safeguard and the most important thing we've all talked about is absolutely ensuring that the citizen members are serious, deliberative, thoughtful people. That's the ultimate safeguard, right? That's the ultimate safeguard, because if that's the case, this is not going to go off the rails. Those people, like the people here, were serious, thoughtful people, I think. I recognize a few names, not very many. And I go back to, when we had our own financial crisis, we had a Financial Review Commission, which had a council liaison member, but not a member, but Scott Knoll was there and involved in every moment of that, so he sat on every meeting. But it was full of pretty serious people, and collectively we issued a very long report with 30 recommendations about how to run the city in a more fiscally responsible way. I think almost all of those were adopted, and I thought that process, public meetings, public hearings, long time periods in between, I took 6 or 8 months to get that report out, but that was a successful commission that had a good outcome. So I want to build as many safeguards as we into this to make sure that is the group of citizen volunteers. And if we don't get 11 or 8 applicants that meet that criteria, then the commission has to get smaller, because we only need, this is so important, it can only have that serious, thoughtful, and deliberative person who's involved in the community, committed to the community, and really wants to make a contribution. We're all here to improve the quality of life of our citizens, right? That's all of our goals. Let's start with a presumption of good faith by everyone here, okay? And can we have opportunities to make a run at a city which has been very successful, even more successful, by not only technical fixes, but looking to see if there are best practices elsewhere that we might benefit from in a thoughtful manner. The burden is on those who want to change it, to have a high degree of confidence that it will make things better. That's the burden. When things are going well, you don't change them on a whim. When things are going well, you change them only with a high degree of assurance that it will be an improvement. So that's the burden is on that. If things are going horribly and you're fighting for your life, then in any port in a storm, right? But not that. That's not pepper pie. So I want to make sure we do this, and I'm still, Tony, I appreciate the work, and I know how much work this is to put this, start with this process, and I'm warming to this the process of how we do this to make sure the citizen members are fit that category. If they fit that category, then I'm less concerned and maybe not concerned at all that council members on there would be overly influential. Because you have 8 citizens who are very strong, serious, who are not gonna be idly influenced by a council member who happens to be there. Can I be assured at this point that we'll have that type of citizen panel? I don't know. I don't know who's gonna apply for this. I don't know if we're gonna get that high level. If there were, if we had assurances that we would get that, then I'm even less concerned. So I'd like to, I don't know if there's a way to do it, build in flexibility about this, so that when this goes out and we get those applications, to make sure that we have that robust group of people we know will keep this on the rails, on track, and only do things that would be good for the city, improve the quality of life for our citizens, make our government better and more efficient. So I'd like to be a little bit open-minded about that. And of course, we can always amend the ordinance to reflect changes that make sense in that atmosphere. But to me, that's the open question here about will we get the quality of people we're looking for to be in this commission? If we do, all will be well.
I think it's a
I
very.
guess I'm optimistic that we will, because I think that the process virtually assures it. Because we're gonna have, I thank you for the rank ordering idea, but I think that we're going to get however many applications that we will. And, the community's been more involved in the last few months, and even longer because of the sidewalk issue. So people are not gonna be, I don't think, gonna be overwhelmed or shocked by this. And I think we're gonna get a lot of good people wanting to be on the commission, and I'm just optimistic about that. I have no reason to be optimistic about it, other than I know that my neighbors in Pepper Pike are generally that kind of people.
I guess I have that hope, I share that hope also, but it's a fair point, Jim. We wanted to make sure that this commission is populated with people who are going to do it the right way. So by doing it fairly, with integrity, thoroughly and thoughtfully.
I have a question for our law director. Is it permissible for us to discuss these applicants in an executive session? Because they're being
It's the
appointed
appointment
to
of
the
a-
commission?
Yeah, it's appointment of a city official.
So we could do that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's important to know that, so we can have a full airing of the
Well, I think
The pluses and
it's important to be
minuses.
respectful to everybody who would, apply. I mean, they're our neighbors and friends. I don't think that we want to talk about people in public.
Okay. One thing, I think we all need some time to consider this, paper that you've distributed tonight. And I offered this up on behalf of our colleague who's not here tonight. It seems to me that Scott has been on this council, I think, longer than anyone in this room. I think he's deserving of the consideration to be able to weigh in on these issues and share his views with his colleagues. I hope that all of you agree with that. Because of a circumstance beyond his control, he does not know right now if he can be here next week. He just doesn't know. And it's, there are circumstances that I'm not going to publicly share here, but I wish none of us, soon experience some of the things. It's not him personally, but I don't want to create that wrong impression. But anyway, that said, and I know it would affect some of this timeline, since this thing is not happening with an election deadline immediately, I just respectfully suggest that as we proceed next week, depending upon him and his availability, that maybe we, be flexible to allow him to get back into his chair and speak to the issues that he thinks are important.
Yeah, I'd like to do that, but there's a countervailing argument that I think council should.
I think we have enough room
make a
here to
decision.
do it.
One question that I have for Mr. Gentili, there is no spring primary in odd numbered years, would it be your intention to have a special election
No,
for this? Or are you looking at a full 7 months of discussion, deliberation after the commission reports out? It's, because didn't I see a December report out date?
yes,
So council would then take it up in January of next year? Is that-
no. I hope to have if we're gonna have ordinances, if we're gonna have, issues for the ballot, to have those drafted by the end of the year to be decided by the voters next year at the first opportunity.
Well, I'm saying it's in November.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
I
That was
will
his
share.
que- that was his
I believe
question.
Well, I believe there may be a levy that could.
Oh, I
come
see.
out of that.
I see.
So there may be
Gotcha.
an opportunity to see. I don't want to speak for the other board that but I.
Gotcha.
And the December is just because Tony's super organized and he wants to get it done by the end of the year, which is great. But no, I think I like it.
No, I
appreciate it.
I think if we don't put targets out there for us
I
to
agree.
get to, we can kick this can down the road for a long, long time.
No, I should say, I still think this is aggressive but I appreciate having goals, but I still think it's aggressive.
Well, and we would have a little bit of a cushion with this.
Right.
I'd rather set a goal and then realize we need a few more meetings than, that's how I feel.
I think once all of you have read the charter as many times as I have, that you probably will think that we can get this done in 3 minutes.
Yeah, I think it is kind of an aggressive schedule, I did. Just having spoken to I was speaking to Jack Newman, president or the head of the board of Ursula about this. And he actually chaired the Human Heights Charter Commission. And he started describing what goes into one of these things. It's even beyond anything I really contemplated. It is a ton of work. It's a tremendous amount of work, tremendous amount of just fact gathering before you even get to the, gee, should we change things part.
Right, exactly.
And it's a lot. And that's why I think that this is optimistic and different word than aggressive. It's very optimistic that all of that could get
But
accomplished.
yet,
Well,
some charters build in 5 months with a hard stop, and they're required to do that.
Yeah.
So they're required to review every however many years within a shorter framework. But we have flexibility, and I guess we could come back if we need more time. I mean, we still have time after that.
Yeah,
And it's
I think that, well, again, I think that it's better to have goals if we have to let them slip because of circumstances that come up. But I think we should try to meet this timeline. And hopefully I've been doing enough work in the hours that I've put in on our charter and other charters that a good amount of fact finding is in this binder already. And it's there's no bias to it of any kind. It's just what's there, it's just what's out there. It's
In other communities.
in other communities. It's what's printed on in their documents.
All right, so maybe we end the discussion for this evening. Would you like to hear that, everyone?
Yeah, I think we all want to have Scott involved if we can, but I maybe emphasize the if we can, a little more than you did.
Yeah, if it goes on and on, obviously, but hopefully.
Mr. Mayor?
We'll have audience comments, right?
End of the evening.
The committees, we have an infrastructure committee, and Scott isn't here. We sort of went over everything in the infrastructure committee substantively in what Don presented. Don also did a review of some of the other just programming that council's already aware of for the committee, so far as Gates Mills, that sort of thing. Tony, is there anything more that you want to add as to what occurred at that meeting?
I'm sorry.
I was just summarizing as a committee, the infrastructure committee met. And basically, the substance of it was the presentation Don made this evening.
Yeah, I think Don did a good job of showing us what he showed to the committee and the commission and committee. And, I don't know that we took a vote to recommend it, but I think that everybody was comfortable
Yeah.
with the presentation.
Um,
And unfortunately, Scott wasn't able to be there for that. He's our chair. So.
Right. This is not a happy thing that he's involved in. So, anyway, we also had a meeting, which is wonderful, of the Parks and Beautification Committee was able to have its first meeting last Monday. And, Emmy shared that, and, anything you want to report out?
I would. I'd be honored to give the first report for the meeting of the Parks and Beautification Committee. As Mayor said, it was held here on Monday at 7 p.m. It was exciting since, we're newly formed, meeting for the first time, our maiden voyage, as one audience member suggested. We had some really good participation from the committee members and the residents that were in the audience. So I started the meeting by reading the statement of the committee purpose to set the tone. I thought it was good for us to reflect and contemplate the work we were going to be embarking on as a group. We discussed the resident application process. We're anticipating a robust response to this exciting opportunity. We're looking for up to 2 residents to serve on the Parks and Beautification Committee. I will mention, according to Ordinance 2023-17, you must have meaningful experience in the subject matter of the committee. The applications will be available on the city website and at City Hall. We'll also send an email blast to residents. The applications are going to be due in April. We haven't yet honed in on the date, but that should be going out. Hopefully this week we'll have that application out. That process will then move along with interviews, nominations, and then the confirmation of the members to the group. So if you're interested, it would be a great way to serve your community, and I look forward to collaborating with everyone with that. So we also talked about some future projects. We were brainstorming what the committee could play a valuable role in the city. We talked about the parks that we currently have, which would be Pepper Pike Park, Morgan Park, the Shaker Circle Park. We're looking to the future project of the Gates Mills Boulevard Linear Project and Trail. Talked about how we may be able to play a role in that project. We discussed some green initiatives, landscape upgrades, possibly some programming for children and adults that could include some community collaborations with our rec department or library. Just good ideas and possibilities to enhance our green spaces while fostering community engagement and outdoor recreation. So our final agenda item was discussion of hiring a park planner. At our annual budget meeting in December, it was suggested and agreed upon by council to budget an amount for the purpose of hiring a parks planner. The purpose of this council-led initiative was to plan and understand what opportunities we may have to best utilize our existing park spaces and to get a professional opinion and ideas related to some potential projects. I was hopeful that our Parks and Beautification Committee would be the perfect group to get that process underway, a holistic approach to evaluate the green spaces within our community. I was caught off guard and surprised when Mayor Bain mentioned that the process of hiring a park planner was already underway, and that he was engaged with discussions with MKS and was moving forward with the process of park planning for Pepper Pike Park and the lot adjacent to the service department. It was news to all of us, as no mention of this progress had been discussed with council or brought to our attention prior to that moment. The committee is the appropriate group to meet with the planners. I believe we should understand what's being asked of them in regards to the design and plan. I would like to reiterate that the Parks and Beautification Committee would like to be involved in this process, and we're looking for ways to be collaborative, which can be challenging when communication is lacking. We need and we deserve better communication in order for us all to be on the same page with our goals. Finally, the meeting ended with audience comments. We had some nice suggestions and discussions with the residents who chose to attend. And I look forward to our journey in this committee. So thank you. Hopefully my updates will not be as lengthy in the future, but we did cover a lot of ground with our first meeting.
Audience comments were great. It was nice to have the interaction. Yeah.
Not all committees offer that. I we had talked about putting that on there, and I do think it was a nice addition.
And I really appreciate all the work on this. I mean, you know, when, I know you mentioned, and there were so many highlights to it. I know you mentioned, doing, possibly some programming in the park, you know, how I feel about that. That would be a wonderful addition for some of our kids, collaborating with the library, with the school district, but maybe the art center. And also, I know, you know, this is going back some years, but, there's the ability sometimes through the Metro Park system to bring in a naturalist, and Orange Schools did that, and it was really a cool experience for our kids. And that, you know, we could do it as a test. That's, I know I keep repeating this, but I just think we could put it on the calendar, just like we do musical events in maybe a kids musical event. Give it a test on, you know, a Friday evening maybe, you know, or a Saturday evening, so we don't have an adult event, and just see, or a Saturday afternoon, have a naturalist come, talk about something. There's so many interesting things in our area, and, you know, just try it a couple times and see if it works. Something that's close to my heart. I just think it's a good way to bring our community together and bring some nice little quiet programming. I don't think we'd be competing with rec. I've, you know, a fair amount of experience in my life dealing with Orange Rec, I also sat on the rec commission and was involved on school board, and they might even be happy to collaborate. And just, I think this should be small, easy programming. And then, you know, I'm also disappointed that, if we already hired a parks planner, I would really love, for input. I really think that just looking closely at this is so wonderful, and we're gonna have even more of it when we have the Gates Mills Trail, so I really appreciate this. I just think it's a great opportunity, and there's so many possible ways that all of you could go. I'm excited to hear about some of
Well, let me clear up a misstatement, and I apologize, you weren't there, Melanie, so maybe it's inadvertent. There has been no parks planner hired. As, you know, we are looking forward as an administration to
Oh, great.
working collaboratively with the Parks and Beautification Committee. I think it's terrific that council decided to do that. We look forward to the advice and recommendations of the committee as described in the establishment of it. I'm more happy that the committee has now finally been stood up to meet. By the time we received, I think 3 or 4 days before the scheduled meeting that the committee was going to meet, you know, a number of months had passed, obviously, since the beginning of the year, when the budget was adopted and the money allocated. No disrespect is ever meant to the committee or any council person, not you, not Kathy, not Jackie. It seemed that the year was slipping away. And so we got the process started. Council had approved, I think, with some enthusiasm, the retaining of MKSK to do the park on Gates Mills Boulevard. And it seemed very appropriate, and I still think it's appropriate, that we asked them to present a proposal that we could provide if at the time, we didn't even know if the committee was happening. We were gonna get stood up in time, but that we could present a proposal for the consideration, along with anything else you wanna do with that. But I don't regret that we, you know, proceeded with our administrative task of, you know, fulfilling the budget obligations of, you know, what happened. No decisions were made. We wouldn't make that sort of decision if we had the committee up and running. It's great that it's up and running now, and we are going to look forward to working with the committee. I've actually received nice comment from your other members of the committee that they're very pleased that MKSK was asked to take a look at this. So I apologize if your feelings were hurt.
My feelings are not hurt. That I will say that the
Good, I'm glad.
budget, thank you. The budget item, the amount of money that we budgeted at the council meeting, which was our budgetary meeting, that was a council-led initiative. The fact that you have proceeded to work with somebody with really not discussing it with anybody is the issue. That's the issue that I have. I think that MKSK, the presentation that they put forward, they seem like a lovely group to work with. But there were opportunities not just to talk to the Parks and Beautification Committee members, but anybody on council to bring them in to have a discussion about it. And I don't believe that that happened. So no, my feelings aren't hurt. I'm not a crybaby about stuff. But I will say that what was said at that meeting, Rick, was that you had engaged in a negotiation contract with.
I did not say that. I did not say I engaged these people. I did not say that, Emmy. And let me say this. I want to make sure we're clear here, and I had to clarify it at the committee meeting. I hate to bring it up here. When you said that the committee had oversight of things that happen in the parks. The committee does not have oversight. That word was actually discussed during the conversation here in council, and the language is to advise and recommend. We look forward to the advice and recommendation. The administration will continue, has the authority, and will continue to exercise the authority to talk to vendors, have conversations, seek the advice and recommendation of the committee. And I don't want anyone on council to think that suddenly the Parks and Recreation Committee is running our parks. That is not the ordinance. That is not the way the city operates.
I don't think anybody thinks that. I just
Well,
think
that's
that.
what I just heard, Melanie. I'm sorry.
No, well,
In my using the word oversight, I apologize. When I said it in the meeting, it was the first meeting I have ever chaired, that I may have misspoke. You corrected me, and I changed my language. I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes in doing this. I'm trying to do the best work that we can do collaboratively, which when decisions are being made that are not collaborative, not communicated, I am going to speak up and say something.
Councilwoman, I suggest that we hit the reset and that we go forward in a confident and productive way, working together.
I would like that.
Okay.
and I just think that, what's really important is that these are legacy projects and so important to our community that, to your point, there is this collaboration, and that council and in public meetings, we talk about what we're going to do in these parks and these spaces. And some of it might seem like minutia to other people, but I think there are people in the community who would care about if we're putting, what kinds of trees we're putting in. Are they appropriate, and appropriate for Ohio and their environment? What kind of programming are we doing there? So I really love that this committee is there to come back to council with ideas and to be in the room talking to MKSK, hopefully, and sharing their views, council getting to share council's views, so that we can have a really, really great result. This is our centennial, and everything we do, it's a reminder, is a legacy for our children and for future generations. So I really appreciate what you're all saying, and I think that, yes, this is a great point to move forward and make sure that we're informing this process with as much information and passion as the people on this committee are going to bring in, the rest of council probably, also along with you, Rick.
Okay, let's move on at this point. I'm sorry, Councilman, you had your hand up before. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that I think the community wants to be involved in a lot of the committees, but may not be able to make it to the meetings. Is it possible to explore live streaming it or somehow recording it and then putting it up on the web? Could we do that?
Not
Just to keep it-
technically, not that I'm aware that we have that ability. No, I don't. We don't have that skill set right now. Maybe when we get everything in here, where it should be, maybe we will. But,
I
okay.
wonder if we could record and then it goes voice to text. I don't know. Can we do that? I don't know. It might not be a good
Or I could
quality.
just put my iPhone up on a
It
tripod.
might not be. Oh, yeah. That was amazing, by the way. I never meant to give you kudos for that. That was amazing.
Okay, you ready to move on? Okay. My comments, last night, we had the State of the City address. I appreciate, again, our department heads taking the time out of their lives to make sure that they attended that. Thank you to the council members who were able to be present for that. It was, well received by the audience members who came up to me at the end. I'm sorry, I don't know all their names. There was one gentleman who came up to me who I do want to share what he said with council. He is a physician with the Cleveland Clinic and an immediately impressive guy. And do you know him?
Dr. Hoffman.
Okay. And he is generously offered to initiate a series of talks conveying, in a very understandable way, medical information for members of our community in live talks or by recording. He does this for 10 years, he said, in another community. And I think it's just fantastic that he wants to bring that to Pepper Pike. And I really enjoyed my little chat with him. He's
No, he's
an
great.
impressive guy to talk to.
I had emailed him because I had seen his article in the paper in January, and do you remember I forwarded you his email?
Oh, that's the same
The
guy.
same guy who said he would do community programs for us, and I thought you guys had connected before, but.
Well, I'm really glad. Thank you for sending that in the past. And I'm glad he caught up with it and pushed the point home. I'm totally in favor of it. I've even offered him a space in our Pepper Pike Post. If there's some, something that he thinks would be effective to help convey to our community, I'm happy to entertain, that sort of thing. I think he's the gentleman who talked about community centers last night, to just place them in your heads who I'm talking about. And I'm really looking forward he's already reached out to me today. And I'm really looking forward to setting something up and making this happen. Yes,
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about that, because I think he said at the beginning, it doesn't necessarily mean a physical space, right?
well, that's when he was talking about the community centers.
Right, the community center. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't, I heard him say that it didn't necessarily require a physical space, so I'm, really,
Right, I think, what I told him was, if he has good things to say to our residents, we will find the physical space. We will do it either in, depending on how many, maybe we do it once, just to see what sort of response we have. The downstairs or this room may afford enough space for him initially. And we'll just see how the program works. And I think it's an exciting thing for the city. And he said it particularly is appealing, he finds, to older residents as it improves their interaction with their own physician. He's not there to give medical advice. He's not trying to do that. What he's trying to do is inform people and heighten their awareness, I think, of issues that could be affecting their lives and things they should be interacting with their physician about. That's at least my short takeaway from the conversation. And I thought he was a great communicator, even in the little bit I spoke. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a shame he has to go to Solon to do all those lectures. We could have them here, with us
Right.
too. So-
That's a great idea.
And to build community within our community for people that
It's
Yeah.
it's
interested,
wonderful.
which is great.
Yeah, so that was last night. I think that's the biggest thing that's happened. Oh, the other thing that's happened, I can let you know, is that on April 8th, you may have heard, there's going to be a total eclipse of the sun for the first time since whenever. There's a total eclipse of the sun every day of the year somewhere on planet Earth. But this year, it's the time when that total eclipse is going to pass over this region. And there's supposed to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people coming to this region. Avon, Ohio is going to break off and fall into Lake Erie. There's so many people gathering in Avon. But it's going to be total here too, probably within some millimeter fraction of a total eclipse degree.
Total-ish.
So it's going to be here too. And in collaboration and partnership with Ursuline College, since we have limited physical space here. We are working with Ursuline to have a solar eclipse gathering. They have a lot of open land there, people can spread out. We have secured and have been offering some solar eclipse classes for people. Scares the dickens out of me, even the idea of trusting, just because it has some ISO stamp on it or whatever it is. I'm not looking at the sun. And I'm gonna get my little box and poke a hole in it like they did when I was 9 years old. I'm still gonna do that. And, but we are, it's got a sticker on it that says it's okay. I'll leave it to the doctor to tell us, don't do that. And maybe you'll be looking through the glasses. I don't know. And
I'll look through my phone through a filter. That's what I'm doing.
so that should be a nice event. I know Ursuline, there's gonna be some activities up there for kids and things. All the schools are closed that day. So it should get they're trying to even estimate the attendance. And just with their own faculty and staff, that's some hundreds of people. So how many people in Pepper Pike leave their own front yard and go over there to look at the eclipse? I don't know. But we're making it available as a party for everyone. And I think that's all the big news in this town right now. Chief.
I wouldn't mind sharing something I'm really proud of, and I think everybody in the room and the community would be proud as well. At the end of last year, due to a lack of training in these topics, I volunteered 2 of our trainers to do a regional large-scale training, spearheaded on a tactical response to critical incidents. So this is forceful, quick type training. They ended up, Sergeant Kruger, Eric Kruger, I don't know if any of you have met him, and Patrolman Greg Hampton, who I know has some fans in the room. They are outstanding tactical trainers, and they're detailed, and they care so deeply about the safety of the residents and our officers. So they, with minimal guidance, they were able to set up meetings with other tactical trainers. We had at least 10 police departments attend with great help from Hunting Valley, who had trainers as well and secured a facility for us to use. And in 2 days, and in 2 4-hour blocks, they were able to train 70 police officers from area departments on, the tools they need, not only to save lives, but to survive and succeed themselves in a violent incident. So I was really proud of them. It's the first time they put a large one like this together. We do it in-house all the time, but they're helping other officers and communities, and that's the kind of place this is. So I was proud, and I know you are too, because really to attract and retain guys like that is just fantastic. So
Great. That's great to hear.
Thank you for that report, Chief. And I didn't mean to pass over the directors and chiefs when I launched into the mayor comment. Don or Jim, you have anything?
Couple small things. Well,
Yeah.
one really good news thing is we've gotten clearance from the county for people on Shaker first phase to start connecting. So we're sending a letter out that literally got that information late tonight.
Is that what?
6 months later.
Guys, good news. So, and then we also had, we did get bids for some sanitary sewer cleaning on Fairmont Boulevard. We mentioned at the infrastructure committee meeting.
Stormwater.
Bids came, the storm system on Fairmont. So I will have those on council's agenda next week.
Okay, so that, we talked about that last night in the comments. It's like a $45,000 project to film video. You gotta stop using the word film, we don't film anymore. To somehow record the,
Digital
and
tape.
inspect the Fairmont soil. So that'll be up to the commission next week. Okay.
Those are the-
One thing that we got this week was for the 24th year, we have been selected to be one of the Tree City USAs. So that's for 2023. We do a lot of tree pruning and a lot of stuff. We meet the criteria again, which is always good. So we'll be picking up that award with maybe we won't need it.
Alrighty.
I had a question, Jim. Do you know when the bathrooms are gonna open up again? In the park?
When it stays consistently warm.
June.
You just said you're not quite to get it there, now you want me to take it away.
I know, I have one quick question. I know it came up months and months ago, and this is, I don't want to take a lot of time with this, but we talked a lot about early on in some of the community meetings, actually, it came up about invasive species. And I don't know if we have any strategies now that we're kind of at the blooming phase. I mean, I know along the freeway, there's a lot of pretty bad stuff, and then, you know, garlic mustard and all that stuff like that. I don't know if there's any, you know, if there's any money out there, any strategies to deal with some of these things.
I mean, it comes and goes, so, you know, obviously, one of the aggressive approaches is just to spray everything, and that's what they do in certain areas, and that's not what we wanna do next door, especially with stuff that ties into our waterway, like what's going on in Circle and Shaker. You
Yeah,
remember a few years ago, it was not considered a wetland, so we used to cut that all the time, but once that became a wetland, we kind of had to stay away from it, and that's when the fragment took
just
over.
those grasses up
Yeah.
near 271
Yeah,
are
and
pretty,
it's, if you really
pretty
watch it,
awful that those are there.
it's, those are in the flow lines,
I
like where the
know.
water melts.
That's why I was thinking, is there any other strategy that they have?
Yeah.
Because it's,
I mean,
both answers are bad.
yeah, there's not really a good answer, and some of the stuff is just so hard to get rid of. You know, I mean, there's people that have passed along some information. We try to decipher what we can do, and short of.
Yeah, we've been, to answer some more to your question, total agreement. This problem has been something we've been looking at for the entire time I've been mayor. And, the Phragmites obviously is.
That's really what,
that's the-
that's the worst.
that's
I
the
know the other
worst.
stuff is bad, but that's really
The
bad.
Phragmites is worse. It's gotten ahead of itself in some areas that we don't control. It's not our area.
It's not our control, but they don't care to control it.
Well, there's only, if it's in a wetland, there's only so much they can even do. And that's unfortunate. That's why we have, you know, yearly, you know, try to have a garlic mustard pool
Yeah.
in the public areas. I know you
I've
participated in
participated,
it
yeah.
once or twice.
I'll do it again.
And, you know, hopefully we'll do it. I think our program has been pretty successful, actually. We didn't do it last year, or a couple of years, because I think we pull out of the public areas, I think we've weeded out a lot of that garlic mustard. The problem with our city, in part, is so much of the land is in private hands. You know, it's the wooded ravines, you know, where people are, and we can't go in there. We encourage people to get back in there, pull out that garlic mustard. Don't let the privet take over the woods. The privet's terrible back in those woods.
I back up to it. So I don't know if maybe in one of our newsletters,
Yeah.
we could have some like pictures so people can be aware.
We do that.
So, yeah, because I haven't seen it for a while, I just think people need to be reminded
Yeah.
and know what they're looking for.
Right.
I know
agree.
that's not as big of a problem, you know,
Yeah.
as some of the other stuff, but it's still at least something we can.
No,
do.
it is. The garlic mustard chokes out a lot of species in the woods. The privet chokes out a lot of species in the woods. You know, there's a lack of mayapple and trillium and, you know, the native things
The
that you
native
want to see
plants are
coming
getting
up
choked out.
in the floor of the woods. And people have to attend to their own properties and be willing to go down there or have a gardener, whoever does it for them, get down these woods and
But, you know,
Yank it
whatever
out.
we can do to make sure they know what to look for.
Yeah.
So that if they're so inclined and they're trying to weed and they don't know, is that
we
some
will
kind of
make sure that our,
nice little wildflower? Because the garlic mustard could look like a wildflower. It is, I mean, it does look like a wildflower, except that it kills all other
well,
native.
we will make,
native
we
things.
have that all programmed already. We'll make sure that it's included, I will make sure that it's included
I
in our
really appreciate that.
Everpine post and get it out because
really.
I agree with you. People have to take care of their ones.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, let me turn to some audience comments. Mr. Taft, you were earlier in the meeting wanting to speak, so.
Yeah,
I just,
I didn't see the agenda. It is,
You have to say your name, Rick,
oh, I'm
and
sorry.
your address. You may never have been here before, but that's the way we do it.
It's Rick Taft at 4 Pepper Ridge Road, over here off Sound. Two quick comments in respect to the time. One, the amount of goodwill and effort, especially from Tony, going into the Charter Review Commission proposal is palpable and indeed the source of pride. And yet, I think there are two mistakes that council may be making that it has the power to avoid. One mistake is there's a piece of work, and I mentioned this last night, I'll be succinct. There's a piece of work that council can do to educate itself and the community on the charter improvement process. And that is to like, find the low-hanging fruit, find the things that can be agreed upon by council and the mayor and maybe other people who help you look at some basically technical refining amendments for this charter. And if you, one of the things you may find is that that's not as easy as you might think it is. But let's assume there is a core of things that can be done to clean up the document and deal with any nonsensical aspects of it. I say that should be done because there's nothing to stop you from doing it. And I've been through a smaller version of it. It's very healthy. It's a good piece of council work to do. And as you do it, you will draw community engagement. There is not enough community engagement for the colossal size of what you're about to do. It's really enormous because you're going back to the foundation of the city and say, is this the foundation we like? So I think you also haven't thought forward to what would eventually go to the voters. If you don't do a cleanup amendment, then every little picky, seeming small aspect of the cleanup will be right there embedded with everything else that may be major, structural, important. It will distract people from big issues that you want them to deal with. It's a mistake not to do it. It's a council opportunity you should take. Second point is, when a commission acts for a community like this, it will affect the powers of council. If your powers are going to be affected by that report, you do not want to have your council members on that commission. It's just bad optics. It raises questions. It makes your work vulnerable to being compromised. To say you've compromised the independence of the commission you work so hard to create and work so hard to get good results out of. Don't do it.
Thank you, Mr. Taft. Anyone else? Ms. Graham?
To your point about the Phragmites,
I'm sorry, could you, I know we all know.
Lynn
you
Graham,
can't say.
31437 Shaker Boulevard. To your point about the Phragmites, there was a documentary on PBS a couple of years ago about the Phragmites at Mentor Marsh,
Okay, yeah.
and there was a fire, and it burned all the Phragmites, and it allowed the native plants to come back. I don't know if somebody wants to talk to the people at Mentor to see how they have now controlled the Phragmites after they did it wasn't a controlled burn, it was, I think, arson at that
It
time.
was arson.
Happy accident, is that what you said?
I think it was a 10-year-old.
Well, it was killing.
That's the old joke,
It was-
Glenn, so how do you start a fire?
It was killing the marsh.
Yeah, it was killing the marsh. And they said
And all the
that,
native-
that actually, the fire actually helped the marsh.
Yeah.
By killing off the Phragmite and allowing the,
The native species were all struggling, I mean, and it was, I'll have to
so
go
I
back
don't
and
know
see
if
if I can
somebody,
find that.
it can talk to somebody at Mentor to see how now they control the Phragmite, that if we did a controlled burn on some of
Or
that
something
public
comparable.
to get rid of that Phragmite that's along the freeway that's on.
Yeah, you see it and every time I see it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it makes me sick every time I see it.
Because the wetlands in back of our property was a lake at one time. And it's now, a wetlands, and it's 90% Phragmite with a small stream that goes to the causeway to drop down to the creek. And it's too expensive now for us to turn it
Yeah,
back
it's,
into a lake.
it's impossible to pull.
Let me ask you a question. Hey, Don, I understand wetland issues. Does the Corps or EPA have the ability to give us some limited license or ability to go in there and, eliminate it? Because they recognize this is not good stuff.
It's, there are some processes to go through to take out invasive species, so you can do it as part of a restoration process. It's not cheap, and sometimes even like, the controlled burn issue, a lot of it unfortunately is literally because it likes salt, and the salt is coming from the freeway, and it's growing on the side of the slope, which really is not a wetland, but that's the kind of area where that is. Then it goes right out from there. You're also right underneath some very high-powered electric lines, so
You don't want fires.
you're never gonna put a fire over there. I just
Right.
know that nobody's gonna want that.
Well, that's,
But-
yeah, if
but
there's,
there are-
there's
yeah.
something we could do, because
There-
it's among the
yeah,
worst
It's a tough
invasive
thing,
species.
because you have an
species.
aggressive, you don't wanna do a really aggressive, spray, it's,
Kills
poisonous and
everything.
stuff, kills everything. Sometimes it's a matter of just cutting it a lot, keeping it short, and then it doesn't spread quite as much, but you literally have to dispose of the clippings somewhere.
I would just wanna make sure we got the right guidance, because it will spread and spread and spread, and we could actually think we're doing good and make it worse, but it's getting worse, and it's amongst the worst things that you can have, and you just see it as you drive down along there, if you know what it is.
Right.
Now that I've told everybody, if you haven't noticed it, you'll
Yeah.
notice it.
No, it's been there for a long time, and fortunately it is, even though it's not great, it is kind of isolated to that.
I know, but it has gotten, it's more, every year it's a little more, and I don't know if you're right, like, could it get dragged? Well, we don't need to talk about this now, but if we can just keep it on the radar.
Yeah, I think, well, for one thing, like the city does, some of their sensible salting, they reduce the amount of salt they're putting on our city streets, which it's kind of fuel for Phragmites, they like salt. So the less salt that we use, or use it sensibly, it does.
Coming off the freeway though, so.
Freeway, we can't control that.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else in the audience?
Bob Zidrock, 28201 Cambridge Lane. And I had the opportunity to read the Civic League document that Scott Newell provided. And I just had a little paraphrase from that document. Reviewing the charter does not necessarily mean changing a charter that has a good structural design. In some cases, the charter review can be viewed as a routine checkup. And if we find that the patient is healthy, no action is necessary. Thank you.
You don't drill a cavity that's not there.
You won't have to do it again.
All right. Anyone else?
Okay, I have a lot of thank yous, but thank you for the excellence. Oh, I'm sorry. Beerbar Savage, 29600 Shaker Boulevard. I want to thank the mayor for the excellent meeting last night. It was very informative, and I think everybody enjoyed it. I appreciate the comments from Rick Taft as a longtime resident and former council. I hope that council considers what he has said tonight and last night. I think it's great information. And also, is there meeting minutes for, committees that, like the beautification and park, committee? Is there gonna be meeting minutes?
Did you do minutes?
I haven't yet, but we wouldn't vote on them till our next meeting. Right, we would
They'll
approve.
they
we-
will-
Okay, I
So,
just want.
Yeah,
Yes,
they need to.
yes, I will do that,
Okay.
but we'll have to vote.
Just
and
curious,
we'll
because
post
it's a new.
No, yeah, no,
Type
I
of thing,
would like to
so,
do that.
So, and thanks, Don, for the connection on Shaker Boulevard. We're excited. We already started getting estimates, so we're good to go on that. Just one, note about, Melanie had mentioned that, you know, about picking the right people for, there's a committee that comes up. One of the things is on that proposal that was sent to, the, council, not one of those were anyone that voted yes on sidewalks or were for sidewalks. So I would hope that you just take that in consideration, that this proposal was sent by individuals that were on the no side.
What proposal is that?
How do you know that how they voted?
I don't know if you know how people voted, I hope you do.
Not how they
No sides
voted, but
of the
how they, you know, when they were not for sidewalks. So this was a petition that was sent. I did this myself. I put, because I couldn't read all of it. It was scribbled all over, but none of these people were for sidewalks.
Okay, well, we're not doing the,
I know, but
the
this
charter
was
review because
mentioned
we're not-
tonight. This
It
was
was
mentioned
mentioned in
tonight.
the first version of the ordinance and it is not in there any longer.
Okay.
And I
So
don't
it has
know,
nothing to
I don't
do
know
with
if
what
all
we're
the
doing.
people, I have no idea if the people who wrote us a letter were those.
They didn't write a
people.
letter, they signed a proposal that they wanted a review of the charter review.
I don't, I
And-
wouldn't know, to be honest with you, I wouldn't know those.
Okay,
people's
well, I know
position.
from being very active with the sidewalks that none of these people were for the sidewalks.
Okay,
So I just wanna
don't
make
know.
that
I just
point.
don't think that that should be relevant.
Yeah,
She
well,
knows.
I know, and
She's
so
opinion.
let's just end it there.
She can speak for herself.
Yeah, you can have your opinion, of course.
It's not an opinion, it's a fact, so, thank you.
Yes, sir, you had a.
Yeah, so, yes, William Thompson, 30500 Providence. Also want to thank Rick Taft for his very concise and moving comments. We have a lot of talk tonight around if council members should be on the committee or not. So imagine a scenario when we have a repeatable process for reviewing the charter, which is the same thing to think about. I can imagine that scenario where a tight timeline with committee members present on, because you've done it repeatedly, we all get it, like, we understand there's a high measure of trust of what's going on. But when you haven't done it in 60 years, I respectfully, I don't think it's fair to compare how other cities operate when they're repeatedly doing, because it's a very, very different model. And I want to, all the council members are, what was the phrase, serious, sober people? It's like, great, there's probably more adjectives to throw in there. And I think if you trust yourselves to put those type of people on the committee, it really begs the question, why do you need to be on the committee too? Right? Because if you're not putting serious, sober people on the committee, that's a problem in and of itself. And if you are putting those serious, sober people on the committee, it's really, really hard to see why there's a visceral, palpable insistence of pushing back against that idea. And I hear words like agenda and hypocritical, and it's very troubling because I hear other words like perception and optics. I think that's, and I think Rick hit on it as well. Just the notion of creating the perception that there's influence, that's immediately a big problem. Now you can say perception without anyone having an agenda or wanting to put their thumb on the scale, but as soon as you make it look like that, you've lost. Because it's very hard to sell and very, very easy for someone to punch a hole in it and say, look, they put themselves on the committee, they put themselves in charge of the committee, they put themselves putting people on and then put themselves and then participated in the committee, and they're on city council too. That looks a massive thumb getting on the scale, even if it's intentional, it looks like that. and thank you for pointing out, that would undermine all of the hard work. And if it really is about some minor wordsmithing, I will go door to door and help you get it passed if it's really about, making it more gender neutral or modernizing or removing references to horse and buggies, or I'm making a joke. Right, thank you. I got one left of what's in the charter, right? But if it turns out to be something more aggressive than that, along with the, structurally changing, along with the notion that you put yourself on the committee, that's really bad. That's really bad from an optics standpoint. You don't want that. Like, if it's an honest effort, you shouldn't need to be there. That said, regarding the list, there was another, and I'm almost on the promise. There was another aspect that I liked from the original proposal, from a cross-section around the city, right? We have the list of the 30 names of people to sign that petition, I assume with good intent, of course, but it specifically says to revisit the balance of power between the council and the mayor. I'm pretty close to the exact wording. To me, that is entering that conversation with a stated immediate subjective perspective on what you want to see come out of it. And I'm a Libra and an engineer, right? So that means I try to be as objective and as fair as I can. I would have a real challenge even putting myself in that kind of situation when I know what outcome I want to get out of something, entering into it with any kind of objective eye on an outcome. And I know that's what you all want is an objective. So be very, 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 very cautious about who you select. Because I'm telling you, that list will be compared against the list of people on that petition. And if there's 8 members out of those 30, that's not a cross-section. That is not a cross-section. I suspect there might be 1 or 2 because they care and they live here, and that's fine. But really, really push yourselves to have a true selection. Even people you disagree with on something political, that can be a very, very good thing. There's a lot of value to be gained out of constructive conflict and inviting a notion of people that disagree with each other, because that's how you get truly great things. When you have a bunch of people that all think the same way, I'm almost done. A bunch of people that think the same way, that's very, very dangerous. Like, what's it called out? I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome to our meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think we stand adjourned.
How did we happen to say that? How did you know, are you new to the community?
Do I look new?
Pardon me?
I'm not new, but it's a meeting that needs to cover play.
Oh, new to this.
Yes.
The meeting is lively.